hindsight. So it really shouldn't come as any surprise that there are always going to be people who prefer to give all their spare time, their personal time, to looking backwards instead of forward, investing all their happiness in recreating some one special part of the past. Once upon a time, in the grand days of old England, there were wonderful things called steam trains. Huge steel beasts thundering across the great green countryside, connecting even the smallest of communities, one to the other. They roared like dragons, breathed fire and smoke, and the ground shook at their passing. But time passed, as it will, and steam reluctantly gave way to electricity. Less romantic, perhaps, but undeniably faster and more efficient. And then there came an infamous man called Beeching, in that far-off time called the 60s, and he shut down all the smaller stations, all the lesser-used branch lines, in the name of progress and efficiency, sacrificing the needs of the smaller communities and the smaller people to better serve the needs of larger communities and more important people. And so the age of steam passed, and no one realized what they'd lost until it was gone. The small railway stations were abandoned, left to rot and ruin in a slow, sullen silence. Ghosts of an old way of life. But wherever the past is remembered, and sometimes even worshipped, it is never really gone. The ghost finders came to Bradley Halt, in Yorkshire, on a cool autumn evening. Once a small but thriving railway station, in the very north of England, Bradley Halt was left behind when the map changed, and its trains were sent somewhere else. Now it was a few abandoned buildings, full of dust and shadows and rusting rails covered in weeds. Set in the bottom of a deep, dark valley between two tall grassy walls, with wide mountainous slopes stretching away on the one side, and great stony inclines on the other. A cold wind blew fitfully through the station gap, and sighed mournfully in the single tunnel mouth. You could drive right past, and never know Bradley Halt was still there. And for many years, most people did. An old-fashioned black taxicab delivered the ghost finders to the top of one grassy slope, after a lengthy journey down many winding roads, from the main line railway station at Leeds. The taxicabby slammed his vehicle to a halt a more than comfortable distance away from the top of the valley, and sat grimly in his seat, refusing to emerge, even to help his passengers with their luggage. He stared straight ahead, as though concerned with what he might see, dourly still and determinedly silent, as J.C. Chance, Melody Chambers, and Happy Jack Palmer clambered out of the back of his cab, stretching slowly and massaging aching back muscles. Melody dragged her scientific equipment out of the boot, while J.C. paid the driver, and Happy took in the new surroundings with his usual miserable and put-upon expression. The taxicabby snatched his fare the moment it was offered, and departed at speed, not even bothering to check if J.C. had added a tip. The three ghost finders watched the taxi depart, then looked at each other. J.C. smiled vaguely, Happy sniffed loudly, and Melody turned away and gave all her attention to her precious scientific instruments. It was a late evening in early September, under slate-grey skies. The light was beginning to drop out of the day, and there was already a definite chill in the air. Not far away stood the original station sign, old lettering on old wood, much reduced by long exposure to wind and weather and many years of neglect. The sign should have read, "Welcome to Bradley Halt." But someone had recently put a painted slash through the word Halt and replaced it with Hell. The three ghost finders stood together at the top of the steep, grassy slope, looking down into the valley below, taking in the sights such as they were. Battered stone and wood buildings stood slumped together on either side of the sunken railway lines, the long platforms hidden under a